What's happening, everybody? I'm Batwolf and welcome to another episode of Art Time. In past episodes, we have taken legendary characters from DC and combined them with a galaxy far, far away to see how their designs and stories might change. With the new Star Wars Acolyte release, I thought that would be a perfect time to peer into the dark side of DC and see how some of their villains might look in Star Wars. With so many villains to choose from, I chose 3 villains that I thought would progress this version of Star Wars. The 3 villains are Darkseid, Deathstroke, and General Zod. Now with the geek facts out of the way, let us begin. Balance, light, and dark. These are the ways of the Force. The Jedi, champions of light who fight for peace and order within the galaxy. And the Sith, who fight for power and control. None embodied the ways of the Sith as the malevolent Sith Lord, Emperor Darkseid. Before he was the leader of the Empire, Darkseid was known as Drax of Korriban. He lived among the original Force users and would witness the first construction of lightsabers and original teachings of the Force. While others thought of the Force as a way to remain connected to the galaxy, Drax saw this as a way to bend the universe to his will. He and other like-minded Force users would begin a war that would last to this day, and constructed what we now know as the Sith. One by one, the Jedi would kill the Sith and join forces with other planets and citizens of the galaxy. All but Drax had fallen. Drax used his failure to boost his power and hatred for the Jedi. He would eventually learn how to conceal his true face with another and siphon life force of another being to keep himself young and powerful, which would allow Drax to find the secret of immortality. For thousands of years, he waited for the Sith to rise, or for a potential pupil for him to teach. But all who called themselves powerful were insignificant next to his power. This had him realize one thing, that Drax was the true embodiment of the dark side, and needed to break the Jedi within. With his name long forgotten, he would take up politics and made his way as a senator in the Genesis Republic. He would swindle, assassinate, and deceive his way through the ranks, and would eventually be promoted to Highfather. In the shadows, he would work with Count Al Ghul, Mandalorian Slade Wilson, and others to create a war. He would work side by side with the Jedi to defeat those who separated from the Republic and gave the Jedi a clone army. It was his work with his enemy that allowed him to discover the Kryptonian Jedi Jor-El, when his hope for a true apprentice would be revealed. He would gain his trust, counsel him, and advise him in ways of the galaxy. Finally, when Jor-El was at his most desperate need for power and guidance, that's when Drax's plan came together. He took the Jedi Knight as his apprentice, prepared Order 66, and turned the clone army into parademons and killed most of the Jedi Knights. When the Jedi fought back, he used this to reveal his true face and manipulate the people of the galaxy into thinking that he stood triumphant yet scarred from a Jedi attack. Sporting new robes and armor, he would lead his new army and apprentice, assembling the galaxy's planets and power into a new dark side empire. While he was once Drax, the first Sith, he would now be known as his true title, Emperor Darkseid. For inspiration for this Lord of the Sith, I took his original design from the comic books and kind of morphed it into Darth Sidious robes and the armor of Darth Vitiate. I didn't want to give him too much armor, as Darkseid would be one of the last people in DC that would need it. So I gave him dark blue armor on his upper body and dark robes for his lower body. I wanted the viewer to feel the weight of his overwhelming power, so I applied his Omega symbol behind with red force lightning sparking off. As this design came to a close, I thought that it looked pretty sick, especially with his upper body. But I am a little disappointed in myself with the shading and lighting, as I kind of rushed it and I should have taken my time. Even in a galaxy far, far away, Darkseid takes his place as the most powerful dark side user, not just as a Sith, but as Emperor Darkseid. Soldier, Bounty Hunter, Mandalorian. Plenty have held these titles, but none have the skills and abilities to take on as many Force users as Deathstroke. Born Slade of House Wilson, Slade was born on Mandalore and raised in the warrior traditions of his people. This meant training in a variety of weapons, strategies, combat, and piloting. His father, Charles, raised him to live up to their house name and taught him a very valuable lesson in the galaxy. The Jedi cannot be trusted. The Mandalorians and Jedi found themselves at odds with their conflicting views. In some cases, they would have full-scale wars. Unfortunately, the time of war would return. No one knew who started it, but for Slade, it meant putting his training to the test. He watched as both Jedi and Mandalorians fell. He fought side by side with his father. He saw how dangerous the peace lovers were and saw their legendary force power firsthand. Before he could react, his father was chopped down in front of him. Filled with grief and rage, he fought the unnamed Jedi. When the dust settled, it was Slade who was left standing, but not without the loss of his right eye. Though the medics offered him a cybernetic eye, he chose to keep his scarred face as a reminder of what the Jedi took from him. After this war, Duchess of Mandalore, Adeline Kane, vowed to bring an age of peace to her people. This did not sit well with many of the traditional Mandalorians, but most of all, Slade. That day, Slade left and became a bounty hunter. Not just any bounty hunter, but the best in the galaxy. Taking some of the most dangerous contracts and having a 10 out of 10 success rate, Slade became so impressive that he was contracted to kill members of the Jedi Order. His skills and hatred for the Jedi brought the attention of Count Ra's al Ghul and Allfather Drax, aka Darkseid. They presented him with the best chance of revenge the galaxy would ever see, to donate his DNA to be used for a clone army that would one day turn against the Jedi. Slade loved this idea, and only wanted two things in return: a sizable payment for his donation, and for his body to be genetically enhanced. The Kaminoan scientist enhanced his already impressive body, giving him enhanced strength, speed, durability, and focus. He would not be force sensitive, but he would fight like he was. After his work with the Kaminoans, the Clone Wars began. Slade became a head general of the Separatist Alliance and led them against the Jedi, winning countless battles and killing hundreds of Jedi across the galaxy. Eventually, the war ended, and with it, the crumbling ways of the Jedi. For a moment, Slade felt that he had avenged his father, that is, until he learned of the younglings. Innocent children within the Order, slaughtered by his clones. Assuming that they would be spared and become members of the Empire, he felt deceived. Slade abandoned the dark path that he was on, which would eventually lead to Darkseid making him a fugitive of the Empire. Slade went back to the criminal underground, once again becoming a bounty hunter. He took on a new name that reflected his past sins. From then on, he would be known as Deathstroke. For Deathstroke's design, I wanted an older looking helmet with some battle damage from the years of it being passed down from warrior to warrior. This meant adding a few scratches and faded colors. For the coloring, I made the armor a dark gray and an undersuit a dark blue from the comics. I used a spray painting brush to then add the black and orange parts. I didn't want to give him a lightsaber, so I gave him the swords with a laser blade on it. This was my personal favorite design, especially when I figured out what I wanted to do for the background. For one of his new missions, I thought the Mandalorian would want to reclaim his warrior ways and become the ruler of Mandalore, which brought him crashing through the royal hall. With a complicated past and deadly skills, here is Deathstroke, the Mandalorian. With the end of the Clone Wars brought the reign of the Empire. Darkseid in power, the Emperor needed someone to enforce his will upon the galaxy, an apprentice. Many feared the wrath and the might of this apprentice. Pity those who fall to the power of Darth Zod. Before he was an enforcer of the Empire, Zod was once a Jedi known as Jor-El. Jor-El was raised in a Jedi temple and came from the planet known for having some of the most powerful Force users, Krypton. While he was powerful, Jor-El's real gift was his wisdom and knowledge, which brought him to the guidance of Allfather Drax, who taught him a lot about the politics and knowledge the Jedi couldn't teach him. He loved traveling the galaxy and exploring different worlds. During the Clone Wars, he became a trusted general of the Genesis Republic, and worked best with one of his most trusted friends, Jedi Master Jon Jones. During a mission together, Jon and Jor crash-landed on a desert planet Tatooine, where they met a kind couple of farmers, the Kents. Jor spoke to them and listened to their issues with the galaxy, more specifically, the Jedi's lack of care for the innocent citizens of the Rims. This was Jor-El's first showing of kindness, and had him reflect on his place in the Jedi Order. The young Jedi was filled with so many questions about who he was. He made his way to the planet he was born on. He couldn't believe the sight, the animals, technology, and imaginative people he met. For the first time in his life, he felt like he truly belonged. Among the people was a beautiful and intelligent former senator of the Republic, Lara. They talked about their people's stories and history, He told her stories about his missions as a Jedi, and she would tell him stories about her life as a senator. She told him that when the Clone Wars began, Krypton left the Republic, but chose to stay neutral in the war. Through their conversations and connection, they fell in love and were secretly married. Still on his duties as a general, he would fight in a war, and when he could, would visit his wife and spend time with his people. As the war came to an end, Jor-El visited Laura, and she revealed to him that she was pregnant. He was ecstatic and looked forward to the new life they were bringing into this world. However, that feeling of glee would not stay. The elders of the planet informed him that Krypton was dying and on the verge of destruction. Jor-El pled with the Jedi Temple to assist the planet and its people, but the Council said that since they were no longer a part of the Republic, they could not help. Growing desperate, he told Jean the truth about his wife and unborn child. Jean was disappointed, but congratulated his friend. He told him that he would keep Jor's secret, and attempt to convince the Council. In his desperation, Jor told Allfather Drax about his situation. This was the moment that Drax revealed that he was an ancient being of power, Darkseid himself. He offered Jor the opportunity to be a part of a new empire and become his student of the Sith. Being denied by the Jedi, remembering most of his life has been devoted not to peace but to war, and the life of his wife and unborn child, he accepted. With his natural abilities a master over the Force in his blade, embracing the dark side made him one of the most powerful Force users in the galaxy. Only members of the Jedi Council seemed to be able to stand up to his power. Zod was ordered to kill all Jedi and burn down their temple. All Jedi, including the younglings. Afterwards, he traveled to Krypton, where his wife was giving birth to their child. Waiting for him was his old friend, Jean. The two fought against each other, using their expert forms and power. The shockwaves of their strikes caused the fragile planet to speed up its destruction. Seeing his chance to escape, Jean cut at Jor's face and made his way to Laura and the child, getting them off the planet. Jor-El saw the planet he loved fall apart and got on his ship to jet off to escape. However, just as he was leaving the planet's atmosphere, it exploded. The shards of Krypton hit his ship, and he could barely keep it flying. Jor-El used the Force to hold the ship together, but felt it collapse around him. Darkseid made his way through the debris. He and his men searched and found Jor-El floating, with his skin burned and some of his limbs blown off. They gave him robotic limbs and a respirator. When he woke, he only had one thing to say: Lara. Jor-El and his men searched far and wide, but couldn't find a trace of his wife and child. With his new resources and hatred for the Jedi, Jor-El buried that side of himself and hunted the Jedi into extinction, serving the Empire and making many, many planets bow before Zod. My inspiration for this design was to take Darth Malgus and Vader from Star Wars and combine them with General Zod's Man of Steel design. This resulted in a cool respirator and mask look that I think complements the three. I also added the Sith chest armor and Zod symbol. For the background, I wanted to show the weight and power of the Empire, so I added flags on a snowy planet, with his Imperial ships in the sky. I love working with the snow as it helps show off the black and red parts of Zod. I do wish I added more details to the flag, but I'm very proud of how this design came out, and I think is a perfect union of DC and Star Wars. Here is the fallen Jedi, Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Zod. So here's if these DC villains were in Star Wars. I really enjoyed making these designs for this video. My personal favorite is Deathstroke, but let me know which story and design was your favorite. If you've come across this video, something tells me that you're either a Star Wars fan or a comic book fan. I just wanted to take a second to appreciate the work, the channel, the life of Ben Potter, aka COMICSTORIAN. On June 8th, the 40-year-old YouTuber died in a car accident. I've been watching COMICSTORIAN ever since I was a kid. If ever I wanted to keep up with a comic book series or look back on an old storyline, there was Benny, reading that story in a fun, dramatic, and exciting way. When you look up to these characters, you're reminded of the legacy that they have once you see those symbols on their chest. Because of his channel, we got to see a light of positivity and great energy from a man who just wanted to share the love of stories. And because of his wife, Natalie, Ben's legacy will live on. I can't tell you how grateful I am to her and the COMICSTORIAN team for continuing to share the love of comics and manga. Though it won't be the same without Benny, I look forward to continuing to share my support for one of my favorite channels on YouTube. So if you like comics, go check out COMICSTORIAN. Subscribe to my channel for more content, and this is Batwolf, howling out.